BetterMan family, we are back. This is Delario Bolton, National Launch Director with BetterMan, and I have a very, very, very special guest with me here today. We're going to be talking about work. We're going to be talking about work and work from God's perspective. And what other better person to have on the show than my friend, Maurice Ahern. Maurice is, in my mind, a world-renowned chef. He owns a coffee shop in Arlington, Texas called Grounds and Gold. That's where I spend a lot of my time working and eating. And so I was just talking with Maurice the other day, kind of telling him about how I've never had a bad experience and I've never had a bad piece of food at Grounds and Gold. And so anyway, I'm excited to welcome him. Maurice, tell the Better Man family a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Delario. Glad to be a part of this. As Delario said, my name is Maurice Ahern, owner of Grounds and Gold coffee shop cafe in Arlington, Texas. Been doing Grounds and Gold now for 5 years. In September, it'll be our 5-year anniversary. It first started off with a bakery back in 2017. And as that grew, we opened up the coffee shop in 2020. But the whole reason we did all of that is I had a son his name was Micah. He had cancer. He was diagnosed when he was 1. He passed away when he was 7 with neuroblastoma. That was in 2016. And so in 2017, that started off this journey that eventually ended up to where we are now today.
Yeah. Man, thank you for sharing that, Maurice. I know that can probably be a touchy subject to talk on a lot of times. So, man, I thank you for opening up about that and sharing. Can you tell us how that journey with your son kind of led to where you are today?
Yes, absolutely. So, a little bit about that journey. When Micah was, again, he had neuroblastoma. When he was 3 years old, he had a really awesome opportunity. He was through this organization. He became paired with TCU baseball. They signed him to a national letter of intent, made him a part of their baseball team. It was a really cool thing. He had his own locker room. He'd go to the games. But that year that they signed him, they went to the College World Series. What was so big about that is the year prior, they had one of their worst seasons ever under Coach Schlossnagle. And then they signed Micah and they go to the College World Series.
Wow.
And then they went 4 years straight. So all 4 years Micah was apart, they went to the College World Series. I've not done research to back this claim up, but I don't think there's many teams that have done that back to back to back to back. Maybe there is, but it's highly unusual. So for them to do that, just shows how inspirational Micah was. He always said never ever give up. And he just always carried himself with such joy. He always had a smile on his face. And so when people around him, they always left inspired or they're motivated. They'd see how he carried himself. So not only did Micah touch countless people through that partnership he had with TCU, his story went out. He and had a lot of people who knew of him. He also touched me. And so when he passed in 2016, I had also had my dad. My dad was diagnosed around the same time Micah was with a totally different cancer. And I lost my dad 3 years prior. So between the loss of my dad, also my son going, and I also went through divorce, that 3-year period, like I was at a pretty low place, not wanting to continue. And I remember in my apartment crying out to God. I actually was reading Psalm 51 and the Message translation, and at the end of Psalm 51, and that translation, David says, "I learned God worship when my pride was shattered. God doesn't for a moment forsake heart-shattered lives." And that's literally where I felt my life was at that point. I'm like, everything that I felt like this is what my life's supposed to look like, all the aspirations and dreams just seemed like everything was falling apart. It was just a bunch of broken pieces. And I was like, God, this mess here, if you can take something and make something of this mess, this life is yours. whatever you want to do with it. I backtrack a little bit. So 6 years prior, when Micah was first diagnosed with cancer, we were living in Florida, and I got the opportunity to work for a restaurant down there for 6 months. And when I was there, the owner of that restaurant, he was a believer. He said a couple different things to me, but one of the things that stuck with me, he said, "We all have gifts, and we find the most joy in life when we're doing how God gifted us."
Yeah.
So now I was discouraged in that time. My dad is dying, my son is dying. I'm like, so I heard that, but I say John Rivers, that CEO, owner of Four Rivers Smokehouse in Florida, I say what he did. He planted seeds that they went back in the back parts of my mind. But it took that period 6 years later, when I'm in a broken place in that apartment, in a place I don't want to be, crying out to God, that those little seeds finally took root in a heart that was broken,
Yeah.
crying out, that came to mind. For the first time, I literally asked myself, well, what are my gifts? God, like, is baking a gift? Like, I've always baked. I got that love from my grandmother, my father, even my son did the baking with me, but I never considered like something like that, a talent he gave me with food could be a gift. And I'm like, God, if this is a gift, um, how do I use that gift for you? So that's where the initial dream came, in a period of
Right.
like really brokenness and crying out. And so I'm like, okay, if this is a gift, God, how do I use that to carry on who Micah was and touch people like he did, but also to bring glory to you through that gift. I In my family, like, no one ever did a business. I was the first one to even go to college in my family, so I didn't have a clue
Right.
what that meant and looked like. But it was funny. God just started bringing people in my path, and different men that just started investing in me, whether it be through time or encouragement or introducing me to others. And yeah, today I'm blessed to be 5 years into this, but it started in a very low and dark place.
Wow. But God took something low and in a dark place, right? Almost like the planting of a seed, right? It has to be planted low in the ground, covered by the dirt, the soil, and watered to grow. And so, man, what were you doing before that? Like, were you working in something where you thought that was your gifting, where you thought that that's where God had called you?
Yeah.
Or
So so on this wall behind me, there's some degrees on this wall behind me. So
let's
so like
unpack some.
I spent a lot of time I was a professional student. I have a few different degrees, two masters, a bachelor. I was working on a PhD. I'm actually, when my son was in a when he was first diagnosed, we were actually living in China, and full time learning the Chinese language. Thought would spend years there and then come back and teach others from what learned there. I was actually wanting to study on like the how the church that's persecuted in a place like China, the intense persecution they go under, how something like so painful like that, like in China, the church was exploding in growth, and so I was fascinated by how does persecution cause like this growth to go. So
Yeah.
little did I know I would go down a complete different path, but I found that fascinating, and so wanted to do something in that. But when Micah got diagnosed, that life completely changed, especially when his the cancer got into his bones. We were in the hospital, like there was no normal. So that having to stop with the studies in that, and then just really focus on trying to figure out how to be home for the kids, how to have a job, how to provide, that there that seemed way less important
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
figuring that out.
So is that so once his passing happened, you remember the seeds that were planted. Um, was it a situation where most people say, "Hey, man, life is short. We've just experienced the death of our son, the death of my father. man, let me just go and do what I want to do. Let me just go and enjoy life. And it all happened at the bakery in Florida
The
or the
so,
restaurant.
so I say those 6 months that I worked for John, like God had me there under John, a businessman who was just living out his faith through how he did business and affecting the community. I say that's where God used John to plant things like I had a lot of knowledge in this head,
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of knowledge about ministry. I studied a lot about that, but I saw it lived out differently from a man doing his business in the community.
right,
And even though that period of my life was so upside down, seeing my dad half the size of a man he was, ravaged by cancer, my son now going through, like, um, it took time for that in a place to really sink in. So, but when Micah was really sick and I had stopped the PhD studies and I'm just working, just trying to survive, literally just you just get in a routine. You're just in survival mode in that thing of the cancer. Um, that yeah, I was not thinking anything like that. In fact, there was a period I remember like I went back to Florida to visit and I got to see the owner of that restaurant one day and I was telling him, I'm like, hey, Micah had this little stretch that was good, and I was telling him, hey, I think I'm gonna start doing my studies again, working on my PhD. And I'll never forget, like, I thought he would be so excited for me because like I was expecting him to just go, that's awesome. But he just went like literally, he goes, hmm, like that. And I was like, well, that's not the response I expected. I'm like,
right.
why wasn't he happy? And I went home and I was like, that stuck with me. I'm like, that was not the response I was expecting from John. But once I'm in that place of brokenness and that thing comes and then that whole idea of the gifting, I'm like thinking like, okay, maybe God's gifted me somewhere else. And all these things that I'm trying to pursue through teaching and everything, he's gonna use all those things, but maybe he has something else he wants me to do to use those in. And so when I took that first step of just, I went and registered a business and, I started baking out of my apartment. It was a little step, but I'm like, "Okay, God, you placed this on." I found some men who kind of showed me how to do that. I went and started the business and just baking out of my apartment. I still had my full-time job. I was still working in a kitchen full-time, but now I'm doing this on the side, and as that grew, every little step of in that growth became a bigger step, but it finally hit me because even though I had this whole other job I was doing, I was loving doing this thing, and it was like the lights went on. I'm like, "Oh, I get it." Like, that's what John meant when he said, "We find the most joy when we're doing how we're gifted," because everything the so especially now the coffee shop, I own a coffee shop, but when I was doing all the other things, like, I would go up to people and I was like when I would tell them what I was doing or what I was studying, sometimes people would wanna talk to me, sometimes they wouldn't, they'd be like, "Eh." I have never met a person that didn't wanna talk to a chef or a coffee
Right,
roaster or
right.
anything. They're it's so he took all those things that I study, but now he's giving me the opportunity to, like, every week I get to share about Micah's story. I get to share about what God's done through something so bad, opportunities that I could have never made happen. But like I get it now because like God takes us through things, He gives us gifts, and He gives us abilities to put us in a place to do the work that He has for us to do. And then we're doing that, like the joy naturally flows from
Oh,
that.
yeah. Yeah, that's good, man. The verse, I mean, oftentimes when we talk about work, Colossians 3:23,
Mm.
whatever you do, work with it all your heart as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward. And so when I think about grounds and goal, when I think about your service, when I think about the way your employees are trained up, there's a level of excellence when we walk into grounds and gold. And I look at that two ways. You really believe in your skills and talents, and you're very prideful and you do everything with a heart of excellence, or the Lord has wired you in such a way to say, hey, Maurice, these are my things. I've given you this gift, right? I want you to take them and work as if you're working for me. And I would definitely say, in my mind, it's the latter.
Yeah, I would, it's def I am in a constant state of learning. This
Yeah.
uh, first restaurant, coffee shop, made a lot of mistakes along the way. I'm still making them. um, Learning through the mistakes, but like the blessing that he has, he's given me great people along the journey, people that were certain parts of a journey, people that have been longer than others, but also even family that have come along and been a part that, yeah, I wouldn't be where I am today if it wasn't for all those. So, part of the thing of, I guess, with what we say at Grounds and Gold is we have a little saying, it's our mission statement. It's like we exist to create Micah moments. So
Mm.
so we um everything about Grounds and Gold, the layout, the different things, it's designed with Micah in mind. So, like, from the stage to the fireplace, like, what are elements of Micah that we can bring in where no one needs to know the story, but they come in and they feel like this place is inviting, this place is inspiring, it's warm, it's like all of those things are who Micah was. And so when we say Micah moments, they're built off his name. So 5 things that's memorable, inspiring, caring, attentive, and happy. If anyone knew Micah, they had a memory from him. They were inspired by him. They felt genuine care. They felt attentive, like he was always in the moment, like whether it was Nerf gun wars, whether it was playing game, whether it was being goofball. But he was also happy. So he always had a smile on his face the majority of the time. So we say if we're doing those 5 things, people will feel cared about, and when they feel cared about, they come alive. And so that's what I learned
Wow.
from a little 7-year-old. Like, I had so much knowledge in my brain, theoretical, theological, all these things I studied, but I learned a lot through how a child carried himself in those 6 years of that he battled cancer, that I'm like, he was more alive than most people who look perfectly healthy on the outside. And so I'm like, if we can create an atmosphere and do something like that, like, I'm able to give that same gift. So the greatest joy is like there's so many stories where people have come in, and I can't make up the stories of how God draws people in there, how he gives opportunities to share, but also with the employees that have been a part of that, that have made that happen. Some of the greatest joys is when I get to share those stories with employees and or hear about employee got to do this. So, like, um, that's our why, and that why again kind of it drives the service, the everything. And so there's more to it than just a job, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Man, I never knew that about those 5 points that spell out his name. Let me ask you, man, because I think when it comes to most men in work, we deem it to be more of an ends to a means, right? Or a means to an end.
Yeah.
And we work because we know that we have to provide for our families, whether we enjoy the work or not, whether we like it. Uh, it's just a means to an end. And so sometimes men get burned out on that. Is there any advice that you could give the men who may be listening? How you could how you could help them in a way that sees their work as more than just the toil of the day.
Yeah, no, I have been there many, many, many days, and even in this stage of my life, like,
Yeah.
there are things where, one of the biggest things of, like, a big thing that's helped me is, like, getting my time my s getting myself the ability to have times to reset or times to pause and times to reflect. So, like, no matter what in anything, you can get so focused or so off track on things that you forget the focus of why you're doing something. And so for me, like, giving myself those times to where I'm like, why am I doing what I'm doing? And when I remember the why is what keeps me going. And so with work, even for men out there, like, Yes, we go out there, we're providing for our families, you know, we work hard to provide, but we're also there's more to work than just providing. My worldview of work is that work is worship. Like when we go out and how we work, like we're doing it to the glory of God. So like God has placed us each in a place. And as men, we're there. And yes, we're toiling hard, we're working hard, we're providing, but he's put us in a place for a reason. And he wants us there for a reason. And it's to bring glory to him. And so, and I think a lot of times, sometimes, I mean, I think sometimes the church has lost the mark on encouraging men like, hey, where you are, God has you there. He's gifted you with that thing. And he wants to use you right where you are, and that's the thing. I believe God's gifted and wired each one of us as men to go out in that work and to be his light in that community, to be that salt, to be that sweet aroma. So that's the thing, is like asking like the why and seeing like, yes, there is this part that's the manual labor of the providing, but there's more to it. And who am I doing it to? Why am I doing it? And then I think when you can start doing that, it helps you to see the things around you differently, as more than just a transaction or a means to an end.
Yeah. Yeah, that's good, man. And I also think I don't wanna negate the fact that the toil and the work is part of the fall, right?
Absolutely.
So it does not get to be hard. We can be
Absolutely.
great at it. We can love it, but there's still gonna be a level of difficulty to it. But one of the things I think is awesome, and I share this with men often as well, is sometimes when it comes to work, we look for the end, right? The end is I'm gonna make sure that I provide for my family well, I retire well, this, that, and the other. But the growth takes place not in the destination, but in the journey.
Yeah.
So as this walking out, the question then becomes, who do I become in the journey?
So that's a good question you were saying that, because I refer to him a lot, but that 6-month period when Micah was first diagnosed, and I'm in Orlando, he's in one hospital, my dad's in another hospital, and I'm at this restaurant, and this man, again, he's planting seeds that I say. One of the things is, like, John said to me, he took me to the side and he goes, "Maurice, what do you need to be successful?" And I just spouted off. First, when he asked me that, I was, like, kinda shocked, but when he did, and I thought about it, I'm like, "Well, I need insurance to pay for my son's medical bills, I need to make more money because I'm not making much money here," and it was, like, all things, like, as a man, like, I need to provide these things for my family, and, this man, again, he's a businessman, he's not a pastor, he's not anything like. He goes, "Maurice, there's a man in the Bible named Abraham. In Genesis 12, God told Abraham to leave everything that he knew, uh, everything, all his comforts, everything, and to go to a land where he didn't know anyone. And then God does all this blessing and makes him all of what we know to him today." But
Right.
he's like, all God's asking you to do today is to be faithful and obedient today. He's like, that is the key to success. Right now, what
That's
are you
good.
going to do? Are you going to be faithful and obedient today? And then if you mess up, guess what? You get back up. Tomorrow's a new day and you're faithful, obedient tomorrow. And here I was like, man, my world is upside down. I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to make everything work. And it's like, no, like the only thing you have right here is now. And so I say that has stuck with me wherever I go to even
Yeah.
now. And what I'm doing is like, I have days where I blow it. I mess up or I didn't do it right. But I'm like, you know what? Tomorrow's the next day. And really, that's all he's calling me right now, is to be faithful and obedient in what I'm doing. And in that process of being a faithful in my work, faithful in my responsibilities as a man, obedient to things, he tends to bring. What happens is all the blessings around us, we tend to be more aware of than when we're so focused with everything like, how am I going to make this, or how am I going to get to this
Yeah.
place? We miss the right here and now. And so all that did is to get my focus more on the now and living in the now and being faithful, obedient in the now. And that's what Micah also taught me, is that's the whole reason why we do the Micah moments, is because it takes it off. the out here and it puts it in the now. And all I'm guaranteed is right now.
Yeah.
Like, it really, I mean, like, I could be gone after this Zoom call for the thing, but, like, right here and now, what am I doing with it now? How am I being faithful in it now? How am I being obedient to what he's called? Like,
Yeah.
"Oh, man, I truly messed up. Darn, what am I gonna do to make that right?" And then go from there, and, I think when we start learning how to do that in everything, whether it's work or anything, we start seeing all, like, just like, I don't know how to explain just the, like, things that we miss. There's so many moments, so many things around us as men, like, sometimes we miss, like, with our kids sometimes
Yeah.
because we're going some things with our wife, like, like, we just it helps us to, again, not to miss the stuff right around us.
Yeah. Man, that's so good. Maurice, you bless me, brother, because I'm gonna tell you something. When you say it's just a reminder to be faithful and obedient right now. And think about what that is. Faithful and obedient right now, every single day, day in and day out. That's consistency. And a
Mm,
lot of times as men, we want more intensity,
mhm,
but consistency is your intensity.
mhm.
And if you can be oh faith, if you can be oh faithful, if you can be faithful and obedient in the now consistently over a period of time, it's gonna change everything. It's gonna change everything, brother. That is so good. So everybody knows. I mean, I'm with BetterMan, but I work in sales. I work in real estate, and man, there are times where I am cold calling, and I'm cold calling, and I'm cold calling, I'm cold calling, and nobody's picking up, or people are cussing me out, or I'm not getting the response that I want. And man, you just reminded me that that work is like that of a farmer, right? We're out, we're plowing, we're planting, we're watering. But at some point, if you're faithful and obedient every single day, there will be a harvest.
Yeah, no,
There'll be a harvest.
it's true. It's being intentional and consistent and the little things day in, day out. You may not sin. And then that shows up when the hard times come around because the hard times are gonna come. But the well, a lot of times people say, "Well, I don't know how I would ever be able to do that." And we often compare ourselves to others or like, I don't know. But the reality is we just each of us, like, it builds in, like, what we do day in and day out. So,
Yep.
like, those little things of, when you're consistent in the little things and those hard times come around, you've already started developing the habits and the faithfulness and the things. So when those hard times come along, again, and just like what Betterman and what I love about Betterman so much is getting men to be around other men and not be on an island by themselves. So like just those little the habit of having other men in your life. So
Yeah.
when something bad does come along, well, guess what? You're not all alone in it. So, like that little habit of being consistent and faithful in that, when something bad like cancer or something like that shakes your life, you're not alone to go through something to where you would, you know, shipwreck into something way worse because now you have some men there with you. So it shows up in so many different ways.
Yeah.
Just that little faithfulness. It's just starts somewhere, and I as men, like, especially as me, like, I'll try to take on something, like, it seems, "Okay, here's this huge task, how do I do it?" I try to do too many things at once,
Yeah.
but if I just take a little bite and, "Okay, what is this one thing I'm just gonna start being faithful and consistent in?"
Yeah.
And just really focus on that, like, I look back a year from now, I'm like, "Whoa," like, I can't believe that I'm there, and now, like, this year, what is gonna be the thing? And so because it can get overwhelming for us as men because we feel like we have so many different things that we're supposed to do,
Yeah.
and then we're hard on ourselves when we're not doing those things, but, like, that's the nice thing is that's what I learned from that man. What am I doing right now? What is the little thing I'm gonna focus on and be faithful in that? And so
Yeah. Yeah. We're always looking to conquer, and we're always looking to have big wins. But what's very important is the step by step, the faithfulness, the obedience, and those small wins. Maurice, man, we've had our time, but let me ask you a question. If there's any bit of advice that you can give any man that's out there listening today, just in terms of his work, his life, working as unto the Lord, his purpose, um, skills, strengths, and abilities that God has just given him naturally. What advice would you give to the men before we close out?
Um, Two things is like, don't try to do it alone. Um, don't try to do it alone. Whatever you're doing, whether you're a business owner, whether you work for someone else, whether you're self-employed, like don't try to do it alone. I've done that mistake many times and thinking like, man, I'm out here all alone. Find you someone else like in your field or what you do or where you're working that has faith and that can be someone that can encourage you and challenge you because chances are as a man they're probably feeling the same thing and a lot of times as men
Yeah.
we're we try to pick we try to and it's something we've been taught, like, just do it by yourself, work hard, but, like, we need each other, and, one of the things that we've been doing even at Grounds and Gold is making a thing once a month to where men come and get around other men so they can be encouraged because the reason that exists is because I was right there feeling that, and I'm like,
Right.
"No, this is," and then rip another man came up and was talking, I'm like, "Let's do it," because I'm like, I I've been in that place and 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 yeah, don't do it alone. Find someone else. BetterMan's great at having different things or encouraging men to through different avenues, but don't try to do it alone. You're not alone. There's other men out there that can encourage you. Seek them out. But two is also just yeah, realize that that your work it is because of a fall, it is the toil and the hard, but that there can be joy in your work
Yeah.
and that joy really that God has you where you are, even if it's like even maybe if it's temporarily, like maybe you are in a bad place, but even in that temporary place, like even the places where I've been that were not enjoyable places, like those things prepared me for where I am now. And so, like, I wouldn't be able to do some of the things now if it wasn't in those hard places. So, like, that just where you are now, realize that God has you where it is and that he wants to use you where you are. And that's the thing is like he with you're his I think uh I think I saw on Chris Harper's shirt the other day something about pirates and it was like what was the saying? But something like the Navy is now a bunch of pirates or
Oh,
something,
yeah, yeah.
and I just love that line. Is like, he just takes a bunch of people that look one way and he turns them into his warriors, the people that's doing
That's right.
fighting for him, and that's the same way. He's placed you where you are, and he wants to use you and it doesn't matter there is no job minuscule enough like you are right where he is and so that's the biggest encouragement is like I get it and I'm always trying to encourage men don't discount where you are you don't
Yeah.
have to be a pastor you don't have to be a minister. You don't have to be leading an organization or being some high up. Like right where you are is right where he wants, and he can do some amazing things with you right where you are. So don't discount where you are.
That's good, Maurice. Well, man, I appreciate you, man. This has been a good time. It's
I have one
always
question though.
jump in.
Your hat, man. You gotta like. I love your hat, so Terry Black's, and I gotta ask you about that.
Terry's Black Barbecue, man. So, we went to a Baylor playoff game this year, and they were giving away Terry Black hats, and people were just leaving them in the seats. I got like 5 of them. But an interesting thing to state is, about a year and a half ago in my real estate journey, like I said, I do a lot of cold calling, and, I was calling on this guy in a certain area of Texas to see if he'd be interested in selling his house. So he picks up the phone. He said, "This is Terry. This is Terry. How can I help you?" So we're talking. And I said, "Man, what do you do for a living?" "Oh, I just own a couple barbecue places." I said, "Would you just happen to be Terry Black?" And he was like, he said, "Is that a good thing or a bad thing?" I said, "Bro," I said, "Man, the brisket was fire. Peach cobbler was off the chain." And so anyway, man, it was just an honor to randomly call one person that happened to be Terry Black. So
That was God's gift to you to remind you that when those
yeah,
cold calls seem like not working that, hey,
Yeah,
that's what keeps you going, and that's like his little gift that to keep you going through those
100%.
hard times. That's a pretty awesome story.
And he decided he didn't end up selling at home, but man, what an awesome opportunity was just to sit and talk to him. So I did talk to him probably for 30 minutes just about the business. And I'm a smoker. I love smoking briskets, ribs, chicken, and things of that nature. So man, it was the light of my day to not get cussed out, but to have a real good conversation with somebody.
That's pretty I had to ask you because as I was talking about John and that place in Orlando, that was a smokehouse, Four River Smokehouse, so
Ah,
seeing that hat and the barbecue, so definitely had me curious.
yeah. Well, good, man. Well, brother, thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure. It's always chatting with you when I see you in Grounds and Gold. And if it's the Lord's will, I'm sure I'll see you this week.
Hey, thank you so much. Thanks for letting me share.
Hey, no problem. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye.